Hello and welcome to another Home Time Art Challenge with Mrs. White. Today we are continuing on with some op art, this time helicopter style. So let's get started with what supplies you will need. You will need a piece of paper. You will need a ruler or some sort of straight edge, a book, a folder, a cereal box, whatevs. As long as it's a straight line, you can use it. And something to color with. Oh, and a pencil. So step one is going to be to use a straight edge and make several lines all crossing at the center of your paper as so. Just make sure they all intersect to make one point in that very center. You could probably get an adult to help you for the little ones, just to make sure that it's nice and lined up. Then you're going to make curved lines in one section of that. So think of it like a pizza pie, and you're going to do like a rainbow up all the way in just that one section. Sorry, my video was off a little bit on this, but you kind of get the idea from the first ones, and then you're going to see the other ones, so it'll make more sense. Then in the next section, you are going to make curves in the opposite direction. So here in just a second, you're going to get a better view where you can actually see the sections that I'm working on. But just remember, basically, you're going to go in those alternating patterns. So here's a funny story. I spent over an hour making this op art last night for you and videotaping myself, and I thought it turned out absolutely gorgeous. Then I got on this morning to record the instructions, and guess what I realized? Mrs. White made a huge, crazy mistake. So you see here, so far I'm doing great. I've got frowny faces, smiley faces, frowny faces, smiley faces, frowny faces, smiley faces, right? Watch. Ready? Wrong answer. Wah, 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 wah. So I did not even notice I made this mistake last night. I was probably jabbering to somebody or watching TV while I was doing it, and I just messed up. But the good news is I spent all that time. It turned out awesome. I didn't even notice my mistake. So I guess it wasn't that big of a mistake, right? It still worked out just fine. So here I went from frowny face to frowny face to frowny face again, which I think means the third one is correct, right? Because that would have been the right pattern. Here I got back on my pattern. So even though I didn't figure out I messed up, I fixed it eventually. Now I'm going back to my smiley faces. Moral of that story is, you know what? Just go with it. We all make mistakes. It just makes my art that much more unique, right? Right? Okay, so then I got back on my pattern. I've finished all of my line work. Now I get to the fun part. I get to color it. So like I said at the beginning, you can use crayons, you can use markers, you can use colored pencils, you could even use paint. I was thinking while I was doing this how much more fun it would be with paint. The reason I picked colored pencils was because, as you guys know, I like to vary my values. I like to mix my colors, and I just have more freedom to do that with things like colored pencils or crayons versus markers. Unless some of my bigger kids that have the fancy markers, you guys can blend those markers. So that might be a fun challenge for you. So as I was coloring in my pattern, you're going to notice I went that extra step and I shaded it. What that means is on the sides, those straight edges, the outsides of each section, I made those darker values. So I pressed a little bit harder and then I pressed a little bit lighter on the center. So that just added to that optical illusion look, right? It really, really made it look rounded. Or three-dimensional. You do not have to do that. Even if you just color it plain Jane with the markers, it's still going to have that optical illusion effect. Just giving it that extra shading or mixing of the different colors would add to the effect. So do as much or as little of that as you want. Use what you've got and have so much fun with it. As always, I will recommend going in the same direction as you are coloring. With these, since we're trying to give that look of that three-dimensional, that curved effect, you'll notice that when I'm coloring mostly, instead of just going side to side, I'm actually going in that curved line motion. So not just side to side, but kind of that curved. Like think of it as a rounded surface and follow the curve. We keep saying flatten the curve. Here we're following the curve. Different rules in art. So you'll also see there's kind of like a shine on there. So it would be like that diagonal line where I almost didn't even color. And if you were looking at, say if you got a glass out of the cabinet and you set it in front of you and you looked at it, there's going to be like a shine right almost where that light hits it closest to you. That's what I was trying to do with my coloring. So you don't have to get that fancy, but just so you understand why that effect works so well, it's the highlight that you see naturally on a curved object. Now you're also going to see a little mistake Mrs. White did here. I got distracted right at the end and started coloring one of my blue stripes orange. Whoops! Orange is the complement of blue, meaning it's across from the color wheel, which means it would make brown if I was mixing it with like paint, right? So what I did was I was like, oh, I just made a horrible mistake, but I didn't get upset. As all good artists do, I thought, okay, how can I fix that? How can I make that work? So I made it look like my mistake was on purpose. So, knowing my color theory and knowing that my mistake was making a little bit more of a brown shadowy effect at the edge of my curve, I decided to go with it. So I just went ahead and went over it with blue, and then I added orange to the other sections so that they all looked the same, and it looked like I did it on purpose. And actually, it was kind of a little happy accident, because if you look at that, you can kind of still tell I did more on that place where I made my mistake, and it actually looks better. It looks more rounded. So if you want to learn from my mistake and copy it, feel free to. I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. Again, remember, you do not have to get fancy with the extra shading, but it's fun if you want to try it. Don't forget to upload these to Artsonia and share them with all of us so we can enjoy your home time art. And you can be entered in to win the weekly contest on Monday for art supplies from Amazon. Have a great week, and I'll see you soon.